Hello and welcome everyone to this special session with Eva Moore, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Old School Romance Book Club, writing communities, and I'm happy to welcome you all today to this virtual session with Moonlight and Magnolias as part of Georgia Romance Writers. We've had a long time tradition of this conference going back to 1982. And this is our first year having a virtual conference. So happy to have so many friends visiting us. And my name is Nikki Salcedo. I'm one of the conference co-chairs. I'm also a past president of Georgia Romance Writers and a longtime member of Romance Writers of America, some other wonderful writing organizations across the US and Atlanta. I've been a two-time Maggie Award recipient. I've been a Golden Heart finalist. I love talking to romance writers. In my spare time, I have a husband, 4 kids, 3 cats, and that means there is no spare time. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my new friend, Eva Moore, who is joining us all the way from California. Eva writes sexy contemporary romances featuring compelling characters finding love in this modern world. And these days, the modern world is really a strange one. Pulling up her Chicagoland roots, she has chased adventures around the globe with stints in France and Singapore. Eva now lives in California at the wine end, not the movie end, with her college sweetheart, 3 gorgeous kiddos, and she loves hearing from the outside world while she is hiding in her she shed. So you can visit her online at the number 4 Eva Moore, EvaMoore.com. We're going to hear a little bit more from Eva next, but welcome. Thank you for being a part of our conference. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. I love that all these conferences are virtual this year because I get to go to so many more of them.
Yeah, you're in Atlanta right now. You didn't even know it.
It's fantastic. I didn't even have to fly.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us. And I'd love just to hear a little bit about your background. How did you develop a love for books and or writing?
I have always been a reader. I was that kid in 3rd grade who read all of the 100 books to get the little Wilbur pin by like January. And when I was 12, I got a bike. And I would ride my bike to the local library and I would sit there. And that was where I discovered the fuchsia and teal books. And I could read one in 4 hours. And so I would just read all of these amazing romance novels. Yeah. My mom had no idea what I was reading. Johanna Lindsay was kind of the deep end of the pool to jump into, but formative. I actually got my mom hooked on romance when she was getting her advanced degree and I was graduating high school, and I was like, Mom, you just need to relax. This is Nora Roberts. I think you're going to really like her. And now she reads more than I do. But I have always loved diving into fictional worlds as a way to calm the craziness of my own, you know? And when I was traveling and feeling fairly isolated, I started writing, and that was in college. I think was the first time I attempted a story, and it was a historical, and Napoleon's path through Europe foiled my plot. It was not well researched. Fast forward a few years, I am home. We have just moved from Illinois to California. I have an infant and a potty training toddler, and no family, no one, nothing to think about other than like raising these 2 babies. I was losing it just a little. I was losing my mind. And I had this repeated dream and I couldn't get it out of my head. And it was the black moment of a story. And it was visceral. And I just thought, this is not something I've read, because I'm not reading right now. I'm not sleeping right now. How am I even reading? And I said, you know what? I'm just going to write it down to get it out of my head because I have to sleep. And I wrote it down and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. Maybe maybe I could just play with these characters in my head while I'm folding laundry and nursing babies and wiping bottoms. And that got me through a lot of that first year in California. And then preschool happened, and I had one morning a week where I had 4 hours to myself because one kid was at school and one was with a sitter. And over the course of that school year, I wrote my first novel. And it was from that dream that I had had, and it spun into someone special.
That's incredible. So you didn't anticipate becoming a writer. You were just someone who loved books, but writing called out to you.
I loved stories. And when I couldn't read them, my brain started making their own.
Yeah.
It was completely unexpected, and yet it has been the greatest gift of my adult life.
I'd love to know your books.
So I write sexy contemporaries. I have 2 series currently out. The first one focuses on a set of girlfriends as they all hit a transition point from like early career to chasing their passions. That's the Girls' Night Out series. And then the second series I've written is I don't know if you've ever watched the HGTV show Fixer Upper. Mm-hmm. When I was living in Singapore, there was a 12-hour time difference. And so I could never talk to anybody that I actually knew in real life because they were always asleep when I was awake. And so I would watch Fixer Upper just to get a glimpse of home.
Oh.
And like I was very homesick for a while there. And I started to think, like, they've got these 4 kids, now 5 kids. What's it going to be like in 20 years when those kids take over this business that their parents have built and turned into this like multi-million-dollar empire, right? And so my Exposed Dreams series was born, and it follows a family of contractors when their dad gets them put on an HGTV show, and these adult children are like, come on, what? Like, and have to figure out their new family hierarchy and who's going to run things. And it's very fun. So the story that I'm working on right now is actually the parents' love story. So I wrote about the 3 children falling in love and finding their happily ever after. But in the background, there was a marriage in peril plot for the parents. And it all kind of wraps up behind the scenes. And my readers were like, no, yeah. Wait, go back. I think you skipped some parts. And so that's what I've been working on through the quarantine, is writing this love story for the 2 parents and how their marriage falls apart and how they pull it back together.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that it took you going to Singapore to write like a very American kind of story about the fixer-upper and family dynasties of contractors. It's probably easier to write about home when you're away from it.
It is. And it, when you use writing as a comfort place, right? The third story in Exposed Dreams actually takes place in Bali because I wanted to go back. The series here takes place in the area where I am in California because I was missing it and I wanted to spend time in my head there. Travel has been a wonderful gift to me and my family. I mean, I'm raising global babies. My daughter just got her hair highlighted for the first time, and she's sending pictures to her friends in Belgium and Florence. Because the families that we became friends with in Singapore have all gone back home.
Yeah.
And so we have, my children have this network of friends in every time zone. It's fantastic. But the isolation can be real until you make those roots and build those communities. And if there's one thing that the travel has really taught me, it's how to reach out and how to approach somebody with open hands and friendship and say, I'm new, you're new too. Let's be best friends.
Let's be best friends.
Let's just be awesome friends. And that has also, gratitude for that is what led me into building communities online and translating that from a real world experience into a digital one, and trying to create the kind of communities that foster the connection that I was feeling that I was lacking.
Well, it's interesting that you use the word connection, because stories are a way we've always connected to people we didn't know, authors we didn't know, characters who were fictional, but yet we could feel so connected because of stories. And then the act of writing is solitary. So yes, you've been internationally in many places, but you might have had that same being a writer, being alone. And so the ability to make community in another country or even from your office is a really important skill. How do you, besides saying let's be best friends, how do we form community online?
I've been working in communities online since 2014 when I became involved in OSRBC. And I think the way that you create successful communities online is by being authentic, being consistent, really knowing what are the pieces that pull this community together and honoring and valuing those. Mm-hmm. That's what keeps people coming back. If they feel seen and this passion of theirs is valued in this space, that's what people are there for. In terms of how do you find that, it takes putting yourself out there. I joined OSRBC as a reader in 2014 in that same Singapore period of isolation, because I was like, I need to talk about books with somebody. And it was already a global following. So there were readers in Singapore I was connecting with. There were readers in the Philippines I was connecting with. There were readers in Australia and New Zealand who were all relatively on the same time zone as me. Mm-hmm. And being able to go somewhere and talk about the books that I loved and, laugh and talk and build those friendships. I really needed that at that time. And it was such a gift to find Sarah's group. That 2 years later, when she was looking for admin help, I raised my hand. I was like, if you ever need anyone, I'm willing to help on the backside of this to keep it going.
This might be a great time for you to explain the acronym and who Sarah is, and about one of your favorite online communities.
Sorry.
It's in the title of the presentation, but let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's get right into it. So OSRBC began as the Old School Romance Book Club. Sarah McLean, New York Times bestselling romance author, started the group in 2014 because she wanted to do a deep dive exploration of the underpinnings of the genre. Where did we begin? Where did we come from? And how has that informed where we've gone? This is what happens when you have a Smith and Harvard educated romance author starting groups. See also the 4th season of Fated Mates, in which she's actually interviewing a lot of the women who were the early influencers of the genre.
Fated Mates is a podcast.
Fated Mates is the podcast that she and Jen Reed's Romance runs weekly. And their 4th season is going to have their first episode, they interviewed Sandra Brown and asked her, what was it like to be acquired by Vivian Stevens? What was it like to be writing at Harlequin when it was just getting off the ground in the United States? It's an awesome interview. Anyways, I digress. So we started reading a book a month, and we went old school. It had to be published before the year 2000. We would vote on it in a monthly poll, and then we would come together and talk about wow, I loved this when I was young, and now it was a real hard read, or and really digging into why it appealed and why it no longer works for us. Got into some really deep conversations about how what we are willing to accept as romantic has really changed in the course of 50 years. And eventually we started reading other romance books because, I mean, we're all romance readers and we have this ready-made group to talk about books. And so it transitioned from being strictly old school to being more all romance inclusive. And it just became this really tight-knit community of people who, because we were having these open and vulnerable conversations, were very connected. I mean, I felt like I knew these women, you know, within like 2 weeks of them joining the group, because we were really going deep. And now it's the place that people come to share, you know, romance news. Whenever EW has their romance article, 4 people are sharing it in the group. We still do a monthly read, but it's a little less formal now. We have 50 spinoff groups.
50?
50, of which I am the honorary admin on all.
What kind of spinoffs?
So we have local chapters that do in-person meetups and run their own book clubs. There's one in the Austin area. There's one in San Antonio. There's one in LA. There's one in Illinois, northern Wisconsin. There are, and all of these are run by the readers. So I set up, because I know how to do Facebook, I set up the group and I'm an admin just to keep an eye on things. Since they're using the OSRBC name, we want to make sure things are okay if they're connected to us, but I don't set anything up. I don't run anything. We have always said from the beginning, if you want to do something, do it. And it's amazing how many people have. There is a Monday night book club that meets on Zoom that is completely reader driven and has, I think there's a meeting tonight. LJ Shen is coming to talk about her latest book. And so, but they've been organizing all of the reader visits or the author visits themselves, which is fantastic. We have niche groups. So there's an Asian dramas group that has come together to talk about their love of K-drama, K-pop, C-drama, all of that. We have a group around travel. So when people are going to reader conferences, we coordinate it within that group so that for example, the latest thing was a Polycon. So there's a whole thread in there of people who are going to a Polycon and where are you staying? And we all want to be together and are we getting together for dinner? And so it's more of like a management group, but it allows us to see each other in real life, which is fantastic. There's a KU group for people who are more interested in KU and are looking for recommendations, and that's just book threads. So yeah, as people have had ideas, wouldn't it be great if? Our answer is yes, go do that.
And one of the groups is a writing.
And one of the groups is a writing group. That's absolutely right. OSRBC Writers Group spun out of a bunch of us who were avid readers being like, oh, you know, I really want to do this writing thing. And you want to do this writing thing. And so do you. And wouldn't it be great if we had a place where we could support each other and talk about writing craft and go for questions. And it is a robust group right now. I'm not sure how many members we have. I want to say it's over 300 now. But there are daily posts, encouragement, beta reading support. And I think the fact that we've known each other for so long, it makes it easier to be open and vulnerable with each other around our writing, around that very tender creative piece that is sometimes difficult to share, you know, with people in our real life or people who are not necessarily romance readers. I have found that I am much more comfortable going in there and saying like, oh, this dialogue is not working. Can you guys help me read it? Tell me what you think. Or is anybody willing to give me a critique on this chapter? You know, that level of vulnerability is there because it's a safe space that we've created out of people that we know and love.
That's incredible. Are you surprised at the success of these groups?
I'm not surprised because romance readers are amazing.
Yeah.
I am impressed that it has continued as long as it has. We are 7 years in to the OSRBC parent group, and it is going strong. We have 8,500 members currently. We do not advertise. It is a private group. And so we have grown strictly through word of mouth, people showing up and saying, oh my God, you need to be here. Mom, Aunt Mary, my best friend from college, come on. This is, we found our people. Come on in.
I found the group through you. You invited me to the group.
Yay. And I'm
It's
so
a
glad
nice thing. Well, it's been a nice place to be that community that you about. And we use the word safe space. We're going to hear it throughout the conference, but it's interesting. That means there's some places that are not safe, where reading romance is frowned upon, treated with a little condescension or dismissed, and to be in a place where we can highlight our love of certain books and writing or K-drama. And everyone's like, me too, I love that.
I think that has been one of the, I mean, the internet has brought a lot into our lives, but I think this is one of the things that I'm most grateful for. Like I said, I began reading romance, knowing it was taboo, hiding in the dark space in the back of the library, reading these books that I loved. I did not know anyone else growing up who read them. And I did not tell anybody that I read them. And then all of a sudden, there's this group of like-minded people who love the same thing I do. And there's this place where we can go to talk about it. It was a game changer for me, like 2014, 2015. I think that has been one of the challenges, though, of being an admin. While our love of romance and our desire to form community around it brought us together, not everyone in that community shares the same values. And when we started, we had 2 rules. Number 1, don't be a jerk. And number 2, don't self-promote. We didn't want it to become spammed with, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. You know, we wanted it to be a genuinely reader-driven community. You wouldn't think that don't be a jerk was such a hard rule. And yet we have had to expand the rules since to include a no hate speech or bullying, and respect the privacy of the group, because people were sharing things that were happening inside the group, outside of it. And we have had to evolve as a group of admins and do a lot of conversation about how do we handle racist hate speech? How do we handle bigots? How do we handle people who don't believe that a man and a man falling in love is actually love? And on one end of the spectrum, we have me, who is a teacher at heart, who's like, well, I want to explain why they're wrong, and I want to help them come into the century, right?
I want to teach.
Right. I want to teach. And on the other hand, we had the other end of the spectrum was like, they are a jerk. Goodbye. We have come closer to the middle on how to handle that. But I will say the number of hours that I spent trying to educate people who had no interest in being educated, I'm much closer to the, no, they've shown who they are. We're done. End of the spectrum. but the majority of my admin work now is around keeping it a safe space for all of our readers so that they're not going to stumble into this situation of, oh, I was here for, Bridgerton talk, and now I'm having it thrown in my face that there's an Indian woman cast as the lead actress.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Indian. Why don't I get to have that same respect, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's been a lot of adminning that has happened to keep it a space where everyone gets to have their happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
And no one gets to cast doubt as to whether that's realistic or not. Because I'm not going to swear. That's some real baloney.
We're an 18 plus organization. I trust everyone to use the language they feel is appropriate.
Okay.
No judgment zone.
That's some bullshit. That's some real bullshit. And we don't want that. So if there has been anything that was challenging, that has been the brunt of it for a group that came together around our love of happily ever afters.
Yeah.
It's ironic, how many people can't see that for someone else.
It is an interesting conversation because it never occurred to me, and maybe reader of color when I was a kid, I was like, you can fall in love, you can fall in love, I can fall in love. Interesting for people to say, wait, no, I feel uncomfortable seeing different people than me falling in love when only read stories about people different from us until recently. So thank you for trying to make it a safe space. And the conversation about inclusion is certainly one of the trends in romance, and that means people who are disabled, people LGBTQ plus, and people of color, people in different faith traditions. How long do you think we're going to do this, or what's your perspective on, what are the trends that you're seeing?
So inclusion has always been a real big one for us, and especially over the last few years. I actually ran a book giveaway within OSRBC because we were trying to encourage people. This is the teacher in me. I was like, if they just read one, if they just read one, they will see that it is the same glorious happily ever after. It is all of the same feelings that you get from these books that you've been reading. Also trying to educate people on how algorithms work. I just read what I see that looks good. Well, the algorithm is showing you the same stuff you've always seen, honey. You need to reach out and tell the algorithm that you'd like a broader view of your world. So we ran this giveaway, and I gave away 400 books. And when I put it up there, I was like, all you have to do is tell me you want to read a book, and I will send you one. Tell me you want to read a book written by a Black author or an author of color. Tell me you want to read about a hero or heroine who is not from your culture, and I'll send you one. I will pay for it. I will send you one. Mm-hmm. And I sent out 400 books. What made me incredibly happy was the number of readers from the group who messaged me privately and said, I'm sending you money. We are funding this. $20, $10, $50. I think I paid for 3 books out of the 400 that I gave away, because it just demonstrated to me that the core of our group valued this and were willing to put their money where their mouth is. And it was really great. And since then, when you see the reviews go by, or you see the squee fests when somebody's new book comes out, right? The number of them that are by authors of color, way up. The number of them that are LGBTQIA, way up. I have really seen a shift in the books that our readers are talking about, and it makes my heart so happy. So do I think that it's a trend? No. I think that it is a move in the right direction that has been a long time coming. And I am very, very happy to be cultivating the community where it's happening.
Well, something that it's hard for writers to remember, which is we shouldn't be writing to the market like this is the trend, let me write it. We should be writing the authentic story like you had that you kept dreaming. You have to write what's in your heart, whatever it is. But readers have a distinct impact on the publishing industry. And so if readers say, I like X, I will pay for X, I will buy this number of books, then publishing can change. So in a way, publishing is driven by reader demand. Publishing is sometimes slow to change. Readers have to be the ones to push it. I really like reader groups because like we all have to start out as writers. No one was born as a writer. You have to start as a reader, and we have to become vocal about what we like and also what we don't know we like. I mean, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have said I like literary fiction, I like romance, and I like some science fiction, but I didn't like mysteries, I didn't like this or whatever. But if you're stuck in a rainy day and someone hands you a really good thriller and you're like, this book is amazing, and every romance novel is not the same, every mystery is not the same, every thriller is not the same. And sometimes as readers, we have to challenge ourselves to not just say, I only read romance, I read lots of different things, or, you know, I only am going to read the Pulitzer Prize list and the Booker Prize list. It's like, no, read the Booker Prize list, read the best romance, you know?
Yeah. And that's one of the things where I see the communities that are gathering around romance really driving publishing, is that, you know, when someone says, oh my God, I just read this book, you have to read this. And suddenly 50 people buy it in one day. That's the power of social media in the reader space. And, you know, traditional publishing is a little slow to respond, but indie publishing is all over that. And I think that a lot of people who had been gatekept for many years are now finding their readers, and their readers are loving it. The readers are so happy, like, finally, the book I've wanted, you know? And I think that these reader communities are really supporting that organic spread of ideas and what books are amazing right now. And I think that's really valuable, because when you have an educated reader, when you have a reader who knows how the system works, when you have a reader who knows that there's good stuff out there, if they go looking, they go looking. Like, these are motivated people. And I think a lot of amazing stories are making it to market because of that.
I'm glad, because every once in a while you just get a book that surprises you. I joined this group as a writer, but having been a lifelong reader. And one of the things I think being in the group affirms for me is the most important thing is writing a good story. That's the only thing that matters. Write a good story and the readers will find you. I do see writers who say, I'm going to do X because of the trend, but I'm like, write a good story. The readers.
You can write to market. You can write to something that you think is going to sell well, but unless you've written it well, unless you've written a good story that you clearly resonate, that works with your voice, that tells your heart,
yeah,
people aren't going to buy it. It's not going to resonate because you haven't given it that life.
Yeah. And even thinking back on some of the old school romance books, they may be a little problematic now, but they were good stories. I mean, I've tried, and especially I had young daughters growing up where how can you recognize the good part of storytelling and recognizing the problematic parts? I have a daughter reading Great Gatsby, and she's like, I can't believe I'm reading this book. She's like very irritated. And I was like, Great Gatsby was not supposed to be a story about wonderful people. They were all supposed to be damaged people. The writing is why we're reading it. So it's a tough conversation to have about looking back on what we liked and what we might do differently. And, you know, our grandchildren are going to look back on our books and find them problematic too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They will say they're still good stories.
I was going to say, I hope they can view it through the lens of, wow, life was different back then. Wow, what women were going to tolerate was different back then. But I still love this character development. I still love the way they fall in love. I love the change. I love the language. I love the setting. Whatever it is about the book that you love is still great. And you can still look at it critically and say, this part, not so much.
Not so much.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to do my book, but I won't. Will never get rid of books. So I probably have 1,000 books where I read them, I love them. Friend and neighbor, if I'm at a soccer game, I probably also give out 400 to 500 books a year. And I never read in the dark. I'm like proud on the soccer field and someone's like, what are you reading? And it's like, it's a shape honey badger, and don't worry about, like, I'll read anything. Some of these classic books that I won't get rid of. One, I'm afraid I won't be able to find another copy. And two, they're little nuggets of value and exactly what you said, the description, what was their first meeting. So I'll keep the old school. And then I'm really thankful for the new stories where people look different, bodies look different. I mean, for a long time, you had to be blonde with freckles, and you had not just freckles, but you had to be blonde with freckles, and you hated your freckles. And there was always like these little tropes. And now it's like, are you in a wheelchair? Do you actually have a full figured body? You know, what are the different can you fall in love and not be a billionaire? Shockingly, yes.
It's amazing how that happens. Yeah.
I know. I mean, I love a billionaire though. Don't get me wrong, but.
Listen, I wrote a billionaire, and he's a tech dude who clearly should not be running anyone's company and just wants to fail. Like, he does not want. I wrote like the anti-hero billionaire. I don't know.
Hard being a billionaire.
I agree though. I agree that you know, when the cover of Spoiler Alert came out, my eyes just went like, yes, like someone with hips and thighs on a cover. Yes, please. Thank you. And on an illustrated cover, that was a design choice. And it makes my heart so happy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We should be happy about what writing and reading. I want to make sure I ask you a question about maybe what would you like to see happen in your group, or like what's something you hope for?
I hope that it continues to grow but maintain the community feel. At one point, when we were still fairly small, we hit an algorithm and we gained like 2,000 members in a week. And we were like, whoa, it's too fast, it's too much. I can't even accept all of these. I don't know who we're letting in. It's overwhelming. And so that was when we started having the questions you have to ask to get in, so we could help vet, like, are you a real person? Baseline. Mm-hmm. But, you know, by keeping everything, you know, word of mouth, I feel like we've still really maintained the feel of a smaller group where everyone knows everyone and you know who's posting. And even if you're lurking and just reading the comments and stuff, you know these people. I think that as we come out of pandemic and get back into the pace of real life, I really hope that people continue to make time and space for these things that they've loved and that have sustained them over the last 2 years. I'm struggling a little bit with that myself at the moment, as 3 children decided to start 3 different sports all at the same time. And I'm finding that I don't have the blocks of time to really immerse myself. But I do hope that people continue to make space for the things that they have fallen in love with, I guess.
That's a great wish. I wish the same. I think these groups are incredible. I did want to ask you about TikTok before we close.
Oh, yes.
Just on how about separate from, Facebook communities or Twitter. What do you think about TikTok?
So I fell into the TikTok pool when people from Facebook would send me TikTok videos like, oh, I think you like this. I think you like this. And it really got me through some very difficult days. And so in January, I decided, I have gotten a lot of joy from this app. It's time for me to start giving back. This is a trend. I see this pattern repeating in my life. So I said, okay, well, what do I have to give? I can talk about my books. I can talk about writing advice. I'm not really going to talk about my kids because that's a line for me.
Yeah.
And I can create like book content, right? The writing advice really took off. A lot of people were like, oh, that I didn't know I could do it that way. Or just having some validation that different paths and different methods for writing, a different process is fine. If it works for you, it's fine. And a lot of people really enjoyed that message and started following me. And I've built this community of writers around that. We have a Discord now, and I go live 5 nights a week and 4 mornings a week. And I run 3 20-minute sprints with 5-minute breaks in between. You show up, you have put in an hour a day towards your passion project. We have group goals. If you follow the hashtag Late Night Writers Club, you'll see all the posts that are pertinent for it. But the way that it's brilliant is that I keep your phone quiet because you're watching me write. So you're not scrolling TikTok and you're not getting sucked into Facebook and you're not getting distracted by all the dopamine things. And also neither am I, because my phone is busy recording. And so it's creating this
recording
space.
Writing TikTok.
So I go live on TikTok and this is what you'll see. You'll see our writing candles and our little timer and me typing. That is what it is. And I keep the timer so that you can work and you can see it on your end. And it just quiets the phones on both sides and makes a space for you to show up. And it's 8 p.m. Pacific and 10:30 a.m. Pacific. Sunday through Thursday evenings and Monday through Thursday mornings. And
who's on the cell? So I see Schitt's Creek, and then you have another candle.
So we have my David Rose candle, which it's a running gag. It's a running joke. And then this is St. Brendan of Frasier, because we stand a mummy.
Of course. Best.
These are our patron saints of heroes over here that keep us motivated. And so we started this probably in February of this year, and we've written 2.25 million words together, and we just passed 2,000 hours of collective work.
And who do we find you as on TikTok?
At author Eva Moore. That's my
Okay.
handle on everything. So that's
Okay.
Twitter, that's Facebook, that's TikTok and Insta. It's all the same.
And then the hashtag is Night Writers.
Late Night Writers Club.
Okay. Well, we're going to check it out because you're saying the dopamine will not be triggered because I'm going to be writing. You're
The
going to be writing.
dopamine will be triggered, but you're triggering it.
I'm triggering it.
You're triggering your own dopamine. We don't need the external for this. We're going to keep everything quiet and focused so that you can make your own feedback. It's so good. It is so good. This is the only way I've written during this pandemic. I don't know if you've done the Becca Syme strengths, but I'm a number 3 responsibility. So if I have a responsibility to somebody, I show up. So by creating this responsibility to be here for other people, I'm showing up for my work in a way that I could not do when I was homeschooling 3 children last year. I have this responsibility, and that allows me to set boundaries in my life that are otherwise more flexible than I'd like. And so I've written 40,000 words in the last few months because I made myself show up for someone else. Like the layers of how this works has made me very, very happy.
No, I believe in it. I be accountable to ourselves, and whatever, if you need to put money in a tip jar, treat yourself to bring your community in. Say the name again of you're a number 3 on what scale?
So Becca Syme does this Strengths for Writers course. And it, if you search Becca Syme on YouTube, you can go through and see all of the different strengths. I'm going to forget the name of the group that does it, but this researcher interviewed 1,000 successful people about what strengths they had that made them great, and identified 34 traits that many humans have that they have said has led them to greatness. And then you do a personality test to see which of those strengths shows up for you. And the idea behind this is, instead of working on where you have a deficit, lean into where you're already great.
Yeah.
And take that greatness farther, right? So me knowing that I am a responsible person, that I like being responsible, and that I will show up when I have a commitment, has reaffirmed for me that I need editor dates on my calendar because I show up. I need sprint dates on my calendar because I will show up. By leaning into this strength of my personality that I already have, I can take myself farther than if I beat myself up for the fact that my extrovertedness is real low. Like, that's not something I can change, but I can take this thing I already have and make it better, and let that guide some of my success.
That's incredible. I'm going to, in the conference app, I'll put some notes so people can find those YouTube videos, your TikTok, which is author Eva Moore.
Correct.
All the platforms, but we're going to find you on TikTok so we can write with you. And then
I can't wait to write with all of you. I'm very excited.
And then we'll also stay connected through the Old School Romance Book Club, which is another fun place. So for people at the conference, if you want to put a comment that says your school romance book and your favorite new school romance book, because there's always one that you love that, could be problematic to stand with, and so a new one, and then we will find you online.
Can I tell you about my latest read? Okay. that I absolutely loved? The title is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. The title drew me in because I was just like, oh yes, please. What? It's a fantasy romance quest, right? Like they're on a quest to beat a witch, and she finds herself having to pair up with this demon. the voice in this book is incredible. It is told with such humor and tongue-in-cheek laughter at like the absurdity, and at the same time building a believable love story with really wonderful spicy scenes. I mean, it changed the way I could see fantasy romance working, right? Like, take away some of the angst, take away some of the darkness, add in some humor, add in demons who are allergic to cinnamon. Okay, sure. It was a delight. I have not laughed out loud at a romance in a very long time. I loved it.
Say the name one more time.
That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lenning.
All right. We'll also put that in the notes for this station. I am game for anything because, like I said, is the most important thing. I'll read anything that's good writing instead of sticking to us. And a long time ago, I was like, should I read books with demons? I don't know. I'm not. And then I read a book with a demon, and I was like, I love them so much. And there's so many different kinds of demons. Some of them are more like vampires, and some are actually maybe from a bad place. And they're all cute. They're all amazing.
And that's what you find when you read broadly.
Read broadly. Read
broadly. I love it.
It has been a pleasure speaking with you today. We have done something really new. These are new kinds of conversations. I want the writers who are coming to this conference to think about their writing with joy, excitement, think about writing communities, different ways to stay engaged on TikTok, meet friends online, meet their best friend online. And you are a guide for us today, so thank you.
I am so delighted that we made this work. It is so good to see your face in person, kind of in person, but I really want to encourage any of the authors watching this right now, reach out. It can be me, it can be another author that you know. We are all here in that same sphere and happy to help, happy to answer questions, happy to make connections. I can't wait to meet you all.
Connections are everything. I wouldn't be here without the kindness of good writing friends. That's what I always say. The kindness of good writing friends is why I am still here, and actually changed me in a lot of other parts of my life. So thank you for the reaching out to us, and all the people you don't even know you've connected with, for doing moderating, helping us think about communities.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll talk soon, and maybe next year we'll see each other in person.
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. Thanks
Have
again.
a great day.